2NURFM, a broadcast service of the University of Newcastle.
Have a look at what's happening in the big expansive universe. To join us to talk about that, Professor John O'Connor. Good morning, John.
Morning, Matt.
Look, this morning you're wanting to talk about Venus and Mars, but why don't we know a heck of a lot about Venus?
Yeah, people heard a lot about Mars. I mean, there are Mars rovers that have been wandering around for ages, but we don't have things wandering around Venus. And the question is, why? Well, it turns out Venus is a pretty inhospitable place, and it makes it really hard to investigate it. To tell you how inhospitable it is, the surface temperature is 460 degrees C typically, which would melt lead. The atmospheric pressure is about 100 times that here on Earth, and from time to time it rains sulfuric acid.
Okay.
Now you can imagine you send a Mars rover up there, make a Venus rover out of it, and it would sort of dissolve away very quickly. And they've had to do some really special things because one of the problems is many of our electronics is based on silicon, and that really starts to die once you get up to about 200 degrees C.
And we've got to go more than double that.
That's right. So, I mean, the Russians actually did a really clever stunt a few years back. They built a special satellite that landed. They encased it in something that really absorbs heat so it could last longer, and they got it to last about 2 hours. And they got some photographs. You know, in fact, there you go. This is lousy for radio, but you can see it. There's a photograph of the surface of Venus.
There we go. For those who look at the video a little bit later,
that's right.
There's the photograph of Venus for you.
Now, so the problem is, how do you get, under these conditions, a reliable probe on Venus? And we want to know about Venus because it's more like the Earth in terms of size than Mars is. And I'd like to know, you know, are there volcanoes on Venus? Are there plate tectonics? You know, what is Venus like inside when we can barely actually touch the outside?
So how far away, just to put it in some kind of perspective for us, how far away from Earth is Mars and how far away is Venus?
Well, Venus is closer in. In fact, the interesting thing is, the first planet is Mercury, and then Venus. And actually, Venus's surface temperature is higher than Mercury, even though Mercury is closer to the sun.
That's bizarre, isn't it?
It's the greenhouse. It's the greenhouse effect. I mean, you've got a lot of carbon dioxide on 100 times the atmospheric pressure of here, and it's almost pure carbon dioxide. Beautiful greenhouse effect. And Mars, of course, is further away from Earth, so it's colder than here. So it's interesting in that, you know, it may, under proper circumstances, it might be a planet that you could think could be inhabitable, but not under these conditions. And we'd like to know about planet formation and, you know, why did Venus end up in such a horrible state? You know, why is there so much CO2 there? What drove it? And so they've got to try and develop new probes. I mean, they keep sending probes up there. There's one called the Venus Express, which the European Space Agency sent up there. They circled the planet for years, and in its dying days, they sent it into a death dive into the atmosphere to measure what the atmosphere was like deeper down. And they've got some useful information about the upper atmosphere and some about the planet.
So how far away, realistically, are we from something that's going to be a little bit more in depth and give us the answers that we're looking for?
Well, your car engine might have some of the answers to that, you know.
I'm not driving to Venus.
No, because, you know, what they need are electronics that can cope with 460 degrees, or, you know, try and extend that 2 hours to maybe days or weeks. And so they're developing semiconductors which are not just based on silicon, but silicon carbide. Now, silicon carbide people might know is an abrasive, but it's also a high temperature semiconductor, and it's often used for attaching to car engine blocks to measure things like pressure and temperature and so forth. So it has the capacity to go to higher temperatures. And so they're working on trying to make all the electronics you need out of silicon carbide. But of course they've also got to worry about not just the semiconductors but the things you attach to it. So, you know, the wires that normally come out, you know, plastic coated wires or whatever, they've got to be something special too, so they don't get dissolved or melted.
Sounds like another job for a really good mechanic if we can finally get something up and running. Thank you, John, for coming in this week.
Thank you, Matt.
Learning a little bit more about Venus and Mars at 2NURFM 103.7.